Good morning, everybody. It is Road to Recovery, and welcome once again for a Monday morning chat. And I am sorry, man. I'm gonna take this thing off. I uh, I was outside. It was a beautiful spring day today, and I got caught up in doing yard work and I don't know a little bit of meditation and stuff. But yeah, it was such a beautiful day that I lost track of time, and it's like, oh man, it's past 9 o'clock. I ran back inside. Didn't get a chance to do my Monday morning chat yesterday or last Monday because it was spring break for our county, and my child was home. So it's a little bit more difficult for me to be able to do a Monday morning chat when I've got a teenage girl running around. So yeah, so I can finally open it back up. And yeah, what's the purpose of Monday Morning Chat? Well, if you're new here, Monday Morning Chat is an opportunity for you to be able to talk with me about anything you want to. And yeah, just look at behind me and see what a mess this room was. I literally ran in here and I didn't even bother cleaning up. So sorry about that. But it's an opportunity if you are struggling with porn addiction, or if you're on the road to recovery yourself and you just want to be able to have a conversation. I afford this time to you just come on in and chat if you want to chat. And if no one's out there listening right now, then I'll just talk about the things that I want to talk about. Yeah, so I've been a little bit. The last couple of weeks have been difficult because the prior week I also had teacher service day. So again, I had the week with my child, and they also had Easter. So it was just it was just difficult for me to be able to get some time away to be able to do the live chats like I normally do. Still struggling with Twitter. I think in the last 3 months, I've been shadow banned from X probably 8 or 10 times. Yeah, yeah, and that was even with trying to use emojis in replacement of the word porn. But I'm just trying to get out there and make a positive message, and Twitter is relentlessly shadow banning me. And as somebody's pointed out to me, it's like, yeah, but there'll be plenty of porn out there, and they don't take those accounts down. And I think it's really starting to say a lot about X, Twitter, as a platform. And I often ask myself, why do I continue using that platform to spread the message? And I'll be honest with you, it's because the very fact that all that crap is out there is the very reason I need to be in that space. So I feel that the opportunities that are afforded to me to be able to do outreach, to be able to take the guy who's in that space where the blinders are on and they can only see the porn, or they can only think about objectifying other people. When the cracks start to form, I'll be that voice of reason. I'm putting myself out there. I'll be that voice of reason, and hopefully they listen. There's going to be a few that do. What else we got going on? I can't stay on very late today. I actually got to drive over to the next town. I've got another friend that I'm going to be meeting up with. As a matter of fact, that friend is Mark. If you've seen the video on my channel, I did an interview with Mark. I'm going to actually go meet Mark today. So he is a wildcat. Yeah, he's an older fellow, but he is, you talk about a person that just has lots of wisdom and has gone through the ringer on some stuff. Whew. And it's cool that when it comes to therapists, there's one type of therapist that goes to take their master's in psychology or master's in social work. They go through all of that and they have no real world experience. Like, they're basically consuming learning materials and then spitting it back out as their practice, right? And then there's another type of therapist that is battle hardened because they lived through some shit, and they go to college and they take on the mechanics of how to do their craft, but they speak from the heart because they've been there. That's what Mark is. And I've met a few other people that have been that way, that have like lived through some shit, and that's what influenced their to go into the field of psychiatry. I I much more prefer that, and I think that a person coming from that area is going to be a better therapist because it's not just a paycheck for them. They go out into the world because they want to help people because they've been there, they've suffered. There's a few people out there Gabriel Mate. If you may not agree with everything he says if you've like listened to all of his whether it's his chats or read any of his books. But Gaber has been there, dude. You talk about a dude who's grizzled. Oh, Gaber Mate, definitely a good read. Another guy I appreciate was I don't know if how many of you are familiar with Russell Brand or Russell Brand was an addict, of course, and he was a drug addict, a sex addict, among us, food addict. He had all the addictions. He wrote a book called Addictions, and that book is amazing. I actually highly recommend it. It's like a comic. It's like a comic understanding of the 12-step process, but it's really well written. Like he put a lot of thought into that book, and he made a documentary after that based upon the book. And in that documentary, he went out to one of the hospitals that was treating, I think it was methadone. They're providing methadone, and he was questioning the whole mechanics of what methadone treatment is actually doing. But in that process, he actually went out to also one of the local clinics that dealt with, it's like a recovery house, dealt with addicts. And the guy running that recovery house was a former addict. So you had this contrast between the emergency room people who were administering the methadone and the person running that department who, medical doctor, and she's looking at the science of like, what is this telling me? And then you went to an actual guy who is not only running the recovery house, but is a practice therapist himself. And listen to his perspective because he was a former addict and talking about the mechanics of recovery. And when we talk about spirituality, and I'm getting to a point here, we're talking about spirituality inside of the recovery process. A lot of people, the thought might be, oh, you want me to go to church? I don't want to go to church. Well, that's not what spirituality is. If you either look at Jung, there's a lot of other, I won't even list them all. There's just a lot of other noted therapists in psychology and psychiatry that have talked about the spiritual process as one of self-improvement. So if you replace self-improvement with spirituality, they're almost synonymous, almost. And when we talk about developing spirituality as a tool to use in recovery, it's really getting into that mindset where you are paying attention to yourself. You're actually listening to the feelings, thoughts, concerns that are happening inside of you. And you're making a concerted effort to work for your own betterment, whatever that happens to entail. And for a lot of us, it's a very similar path, a spiritual path. It's crazy no matter what 12-step room you go into, no matter what 12-step room you go into, you're going to hear very similar talk. Some have called it a recovery cult, and it kind of is. We all start using similar language, but unlike an actual cult, a lot of the practices that are happening are transformative for a reason because they work. Let me repeat that. They're transformative for a reason because they work. And all you got to do is you got to start putting your back into it, right? That's spirituality. You get in there and you start executing. And a spiritual practice could be as simple as just showing up at a meeting or going online for a meeting. Could be as simple as like you wake up, you take a pencil and a piece of paper, and you start sketching out what your day is. And that's just project planning or that's just scheduling. No. Remember, there's a difference now because a person who's just getting up and just trying to make sure they're getting all their tasks complete, that could be a taskmaster. The spiritual person is exercising those tasks and concentrating on what the goals are for every single one of the things that they're accomplishing because they understand it's for their own betterment, right? They're executing that and they're going to make sure as they're scheduling those things that there's time allotted for doing things like I don't know, meditation, yoga, book reading, journaling, whatever, right? Self-improvement tasks, right? So there's a huge difference between I'm a taskmaster versus I am executing a plan of recovery. Yeah. And so I really want to like end this today with thinking about all the things that entail recovery and what it means to be in a recovery space. It's truth, honesty, and attention to self, right? And it's not selfishness, right? It's just an attention to self. That's mindfulness in action. You're actually paying attention to how you feel, what you're doing, what your thoughts, concerns are. Because when we were addicts, the only thing that we could really pay attention to was that craving, right? The desire to go into our addiction. And for pornography addicts in specific, you're constantly you're just doing. You're not even thinking about it most of the time. And the only time you are really putting any thought into the process is like when you're having to overcome a problem, obstacle, or you're trying to think about how you can spice things up, right? And that's the only amount of thought that goes into it. When you go into the spiritual process of recovery, there's a lot of work involved. You have to sit down and really think. And oftentimes you're fighting against your worst instincts, right? And through that whole process, when you can execute it and find success, when you know that it's working, first off, you got to give yourself that little time to give a pat on the back. It's like, you know what? This worked. It actually worked. I did all this crap and it worked. I stayed sober today. Today I stay sober, right? And just being mindful of that constantly, like, ever vigilant, executing your recovery plan and every single day being grateful. Hey, this thing worked, or maybe these things didn't work and I need to try something different, but you're always staying on it. You're never giving up. It's recovery. It's spirituality in practice. All right. Well, like I said, I'm going to cut this off. We have no chatters this morning. And I said I'd probably keep it brief because I've got to get over to the next town and I don't unfortunately have a lot of time left here. So I'm gonna cut out now. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, despite the fact that I struggle with Twitter, go out to my Twitter handle. I always answer my DMs, or I try to as best I can. You can also just reply back to any of my posts. You can email me at road. Let me say that again. Road ROAD the number 2 recovery RECOVERY the number 11 at yahoo.com. Again, that's road number 2 recovery the number 11 at yahoo.com. And I try to follow up on my emails. I'm still looking, by the way, if anybody wants to do an interview. I've had 2 people drop out on an interview with me already. I'm still looking to do an interview. And if you would be interested in having an interview with me, let's go for it. We'll go ahead and set up an interview. And I like anybody out there who's either struggling or in the recovery process themselves or found success in recovery that just wants to talk about like their entire addiction story, like where you started out, where you ended up, how you got there, what your concerns were, what your struggles were. I'd like to interview somebody about that. And I think everybody who's listening would get a lot out of that. I talk about myself a lot on this channel, and I like to give the mic to somebody else and let them talk for a little bit. So if that's one of you, if you're a person who would like to put yourself out there, I promise anonymity. So we can blur out your face. I can even distort your voice if you choose to. So you don't necessarily have to, be concerned if somebody's going to discover you. I've got lots of people I've done interviews with that actually didn't care if they were viewed at, including Mark. So if you don't care, that's fine too. We just leave the camera on and let it roll. Anyway, reach out to me if you're interested in doing that. And please, everybody, stay on that road to recovery. And I wish you the best luck. Take care.